This is Fred Craven at Harmonic Software Production Studios for our socially distant Public Brain Trust number 2. We'll be starting in just a few minutes.
Good morning. My name is Paul Mitchell. I'm a director and senior FileMaker developer here at Harmonic Software Production Studios. And welcome to our Public Brain Trust, holding virtually. Here's on a live stream on YouTube. Our topic today is Meet Claris FileMaker 19. Let's dive right in. First, we've got some introductory remarks. We're going to talk a little bit about the Claris company that puts out the FileMaker platform. We're going to go through many of the new features of FileMaker 19, and then we've got some exciting demos to show you. Then there's a little bit more information, and then a Q&A. So if you're watching us live, feel free to jump in on the chat, and we'll be getting to your questions during that Q&A portion. Thanks so much. So Claris offers the ideal path to deliver the modern custom apps using a platform you already know. Claris helps problem solvers create the apps that make businesses better, whether they are a professional developer or even if they don't have deep development skills. When businesses can't find the apps they need, they can rapidly build those apps, even using modern tech like cloud, mobile, and AI. And then they can connect them together with other apps to automate workflows and deliver even more value. You can do it yourself with the support from the Claris community, or if you don't have time, there are other Claris partners near you to help. In order to provide the tools to create the best modern app experiences, Claris has a vision to make powerful technologies available to everyone. Powerful technologies means things like cloud, AI, the technologies that your customers require in their modern apps. We want to make sure that the power of cloud smart technology is available not just in the cloud, but on every device, on-premise or offline. And low-code technology is accessible to all users, but also extensible by pro developers. So powerful technologies available to everyone. This takes us to the next chapter of Claris FileMaker. Moving away from annual monolithic releases, Claris FileMaker 19 is our first open platform, which means more features, updates, and functionality in your hands faster and more frequently. In this release, developers can extend the platform using AI, JavaScript, or even build shareable packaged add-ons to build modern custom apps that improve workplaces. Speaking of developers, much of the early enthusiasm from the community around this release is founded on the advancements we've made around integrating JavaScript right into the FileMaker platform. JavaScript integration is a game changer for pro developers looking to extend beyond native FileMaker tools for design and functionality. In FileMaker 19, we can create powerful modern apps using readily available JavaScript libraries for your own custom JavaScript code in a web viewer. Directly embed things in your apps like maps, animated graphics, data visualization, and more. JavaScript has a large community of developers constantly updating a vast collection of JavaScript libraries like Vue.js and D3.js containing open source features and functionality. There is now an unlocked universe of tools lying at the fingertips of pro developers without ever having to leave the FileMaker platform. With Claris FileMaker 19, continue to deliver on the expectation of reliable custom apps while meeting new standards of visualization and capabilities customers have always wanted. It is true that JavaScript could be used in a web viewer in prior versions, but FileMaker 19 provides a more elegant method of integration which can save you more time on your projects. In FileMaker 19, JavaScript in a web viewer and FileMaker scripts can communicate directly and pass information between them through a new script step and function. But not every developer has JavaScript skills or the dedicated time to learn a new language. And the Claris vision is powerful technologies available to everyone. So coming soon, Claris will release new modular JavaScript-based add-on components. You will be able to drag and drop feature-rich add-ons like Kanban boards, photo galleries, barcode generators, and more. Who hasn't wanted to drag and drop a simple calendar right onto their layout? That said, snapping together robust apps faster than ever with add-on components does not begin and end with JavaScript. As you are likely familiar, Claris has dedicated a lot of time and resources towards XML representation of the platform to be used as a foundation for moving solutions forward and the potential for modular components. We saw the beginning benefits of that work through add-on tables a few versions back. Shareable add-on components are the next step along this path, and the opportunity is enormous. You can create your own reusable code or functionality for faster development or as extensible modules for your fee-based apps, or maybe as an entry into a potential community-driven marketplace, and more. You can start experimenting with your own add-on components through a preview script step available now. Next, we'll explore a few new enhancements on iOS as we continue to see how we're integrating powerful modern tools right into the FileMaker platform. This time to make smarter apps. And if we're talking about powerful, modern tools on iOS, then we want to talk about some of Apple's most advanced technologies, such as AI. This takes us to FileMaker's support of Apple's Core ML, or machine learning framework, that's available on iOS and macOS. With machine learning, computer systems can essentially start teaching themselves and make accurate predictions. What are some of the things you can do? For example, there's a machine learning model for sentiment analysis. So a computer system can reveal the tone of a message, like feedback on a company's website. Or maybe you want to see who the artist is of a photograph or painting you come across. In the depicted scenario, we are given a part we're not familiar with. So we'll leverage Core ML to identify the part and determine if it is an item we have in stock. After taking a photo of the part, a list of potential results is produced along with the model's percentage of confidence. Integrating Core ML comes down to just 4 things: the Core ML file, a container field to house the Core ML file, a new script step, and a new function. Next, use your voice to run automations like searching for records, updating inventory, or starting a process with FileMaker's support for Siri shortcuts. In the Scripts workspace, Scripts menu, or by right-clicking a script, you can choose to enable scripts for Siri shortcuts. When the user opens their shortcut apps, they will see FileMaker Go along with a list of the scripts you donated. The user can then create a larger shortcut experience, picking and choosing from the scripts you provided. Finally, let's discuss support for NFC, or near-field communication, tag reading. Quickly get information for things like tagged merchandise, navigate to a specific item in a database, or check in at a kiosk using the new Configure NFC Reading script step. The final highlight is the new Create in Cloud feature. We all know expectations for cloud is a simple and fast environment. Currently, creating an app involves multiple steps, beginning with creation on the desktop and ultimately an upload to the cloud environment. In FileMaker 19, we're taking another step toward a zero configuration deployment model. When you create a new file and specify a location, you can now choose a FileMaker cloud environment as the destination and cut down on clicks it would previously take to bring your apps to the cloud. Additionally, this feature will automatically enable the WebDirect extended privilege. Here's a quick list of some miscellaneous improvements and enhancements dropping in FileMaker 19. Card windows are now supported in WebDirect. Furthermore, card windows in WebDirect support the Adjust window, Move Resize window, and new window script steps. Layout mode navigation. You can now switch windows by name. In layout mode, press Ctrl-Alt-K in Windows or Command-Alt-K on a Mac to open a shortcut dialog where you can enter the name of the layout you want to navigate to. Add page count symbol to print numbers with page counts like page 1 of 10. Open a file when FileMaker Pro starts. Preferences, General tab. At Startup, open the Open File checkbox. That means you can launch the application and open a particular file. We now have dark mode support for Mac OS. In support of this, the Get High Contrast Color function has been changed to Get System Appearance. Get System Appearance returns dark aqua when Mac OS is using dark system appearance and aqua when using light appearance. We now have a drag and drop installer. You can install as FileMaker by dragging and dropping the application to the hard drive, and HEIF support. You can now insert high efficiency image format images on layouts and in container fields that can be viewed on macOS, iOS, and iPadOS. So now we're going to show you a few of these new features. And to do that, I've got a couple of my colleagues. But first, I'm going to show you one I built myself. So pardon me while I get to the right resolution. And just show you a quick little thing here where is my, that'll do. So this is just a simple database of images, and I'm going to show you the use of the card window in WebDirect. I have a fondness for the Middle Ages, so these images are all coats of arms. And here just simply, we get a card window in WebDirect. That means we can see something in more detail, maybe add information about it without losing the context we were in. If you're working with WebDirect as a back end for websites, this is a real game changer. This is huge. I can't wait to show this to some of my clients. Now to show us some additional things, we are going to call up my colleague and fellow FileMaker developer, Eric Clark. Eric, come on up.
Thanks, Paul. So I will be talking about the core ML and machine learning aspects of FileMaker 19. So first I want to kind of demystify what is core ML, what is machine learning, besides some really cool sounding buzzwords, because we hear those and nobody knows what it is. It's just cool and you should use it, right? So first I want to define what a machine learning model is. It's a mathematical model where you give it some inputs, it manipulates those in some magical way, and then provides some output. So it's not too dissimilar, at least in concept, from the equations that we all learned in Algebra 1. Right? You put in x, the equation does stuff, and then it turns it into y. So where machine learning is unique or different, where its strength is rather than a human having to tell the computer the stuff to do to x, the computer is able to figure out what it needs to do to turn x into y. And also what's great is it's usually not x, it's usually a number of variables that the computer is able to figure out how to manipulate to turn into your desired outcome. So that's kind of machine learning and what a machine learning model is in a nutshell. Core ML is really just a particular file type. So just like you could save a text document as a .txt or as a Microsoft Word document or as a Pages document, it's just a particular format that Apple uses in their operating system. So there are other formats of machine learning models out there that can be converted into a Core ML format. So let's start with the demo. So I'll move over here. So to start with, yes, it is a picture of me. So to start with the model, you take the model, drop it into a container field in FileMaker, and then you have access to use it through the new script steps and functions that they've provided. So we will load this model. So this particular one is supposed to tell me how old this image is. Or not how old the image is, how old the person in the image is. So I particularly like this one because several months ago, another one of our developers here, Daisy, did another AI demonstration using an Amazon API service that told me that I was between the ages of 9 and 19. That is incorrect. I am not between the ages of 9 and 19. So let's see how old this tells me that I am. So it's 67% confident that I'm 25 to 32, which is pretty accurate, so that's cool. So now I thought I'd try a different photo of myself. it says I am 60 to 100. And it is almost 80% confident that I am 60 to 100. I think it may be the hat. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So again, so the accuracy of the results that you get from the model are going to be dependent on how well trained the model is. And we can talk about that in a second. My sister loves corgis, so I thought I would see if this was able to identify it as a corgi. So run, and sure enough, the first thing that it says is, well, it's a Pembroke Welsh Corgi. Well, that's kind of cool.
Hamster.
Yeah, or a hamster, or a chow chow, or a chihuahua. But, right. This is a piano. Let's see if it agrees. 99.7% confident this is a grand piano. Right, not a stand-up and anything else. This is my living room, so let's see what it says. It's a home theater. Well, I never thought of my living room as a home theater, but sure, let's go with that. This is from a trip to Hawaii, so let's see what it says that is. It's a cliff, drop off, valley. So that's pretty good. Now I did try some other images that it got totally wrong. So it's just dependent on how good that model is. Now, this is all fine and dandy if for some reason in your app you need to identify what is in a picture. And it's cool, but I was having a hard time coming up with enough scenarios where you would need to identify a picture. So there's a number of other machine learning algorithms out there. So one of them, Paul mentioned earlier, is a sentiment classifier, so it can scan a body of text and output, is this positive or negative? But I do really like another model that Claris has shipped in this demo file, which is a model they've called Landscaping Customer. So what this model does is it takes an input of these variables, so area size and number of trees and number of employees and all these other things, and it predicts the number of hours over a course of a year that would be required to maintain this particular property. So that sounds something not quite as cool and sexy as the images, but something that may be much more applicable in a business scenario. You could take something like this on site to a client and give them a real-time quote based on information that they give you there and say, okay, given these parameters, let's load the model, run it. Approximately 415 hours in the first year. So that's pretty cool. Now, what if none of these models that I've just gone through apply to your situation? How can you build your own model? And where else might a model like this be useful? Well, one of our clients is a defense contractor, and they manage a number of parts with their FileMaker system. So it would be cool if they could take a picture of a part and the system might tell them what this is. Not too dissimilar from the example Paul gave earlier of the auto part. The problem is this client, all of that information is proprietary, so they don't want to be calling an external API. So with Core ML, they could train their own model that knows their devices and their parts and take a picture of that, it identify what it is, and all of that happens not even just in the local area network, it happens on the local device. So it's much more secure than calling an external API. So if you want to build your own model, FileMaker does say in their documentation for this feature, at least in FileMaker 19, we'll see if that changes down the road, that you can't train a model with FileMaker. So there are pre-existing models out there. Apple has several examples on their developer website that you can download. Most of them are centered around image recognition. So again, if you need to identify a zebra, great. But if you don't need to identify a zebra, you can still build your own. There are a number of third-party libraries and applications. Apple does have a macOS application to build machine learning models. There are others out there that are pre-built. I found one for botany that you could take a picture and it would identify the kind of plant. So that could potentially be useful depending on what you're doing. So there are other pre-built models out there that you can find and then convert into the Core ML format to use in your app. But the reason we go to FileMaker is because it's a custom app, right? It allows us to use our own custom data. So what if we want to build a model based on our own unique custom data? Not, well, like this landscaping customer, right? So I was thinking about, okay, well, how could you do this? Going back to what a machine learning model is and how it's trained, you give it a number of inputs and say the correct answer is this, right? So you give it 100 pictures of cheetahs and you say these are all cheetahs. And you give it 100 pictures of zebras and you say these are all zebras. And you give it 100 pictures of lions and you say these are all lions. And so it learns, oh, here's the input and here's what the correct answer for the output is. Well, we have that information in FileMaker, right? We can collect that of all the different data points that you have, and then what the correct answer or the correct response or outcome that you would want is. You could gather that in a table to populate that data set, export that out of FileMaker, dump it into one of these apps or libraries to build your own model, have it train the model, convert it to a core ML file, and then drop it in your FileMaker app, and more or less, there you go. So you could build a model using your own data. And that's all I've got with machine learning. So I'll now hand it over to Anthony for some JavaScript stuff.
Thank you, Eric. So, FileMaker folks are some of the most creative people I know. I don't know a more dedicated set of group of people that can find extremely complex solutions for with the very limited tool set they have. And some of the solutions that FileMaker folks have gone to is to utilize JavaScript libraries that are found all over the web. There's hundreds and thousands that are available, and extend FileMaker functionality with these libraries. But before FileMaker 19, definitely utilizing JavaScript within a web viewer has been fairly awkward. To send data to FileMaker, we're using FMP URLs, and that comes with a whole set of problems. And it's not as streamlined. You've got dialogues popping up. And to get data to the web viewer, definitely you're resetting the web viewer. It's refreshing. You don't get to keep what you've entered into the web viewer. So the two functions that FileMaker 19 got are really awesome, because one of them is a script step that allows you to perform JavaScript. The other is a script, not a script step at all. It is a JavaScript function, actually. So within your JavaScript code, you can perform a FileMaker script. So on one side, you can, within FileMaker, you can perform a JavaScript function. The other side, in JavaScript, you can perform a FileMaker script. What that means is that not only can you pass data back and forth, you can also bind certain events from FileMaker to JavaScript and from JavaScript to FileMaker. So I've got a couple of demos showcasing that. The first of which is sort of just a showcase. So here, on the left side, it's just a web viewer. What I've done is I've taken a rich text editor library and I've just thrown it into the web viewer. On the right side, it's entirely FileMaker. So we've got a few buttons, a FileMaker field here, and a web viewer that is displaying the contents of that FileMaker field. And what I can do here is if I wanted to make a ordered list, for example, and I wanted to make an ordered list of greetings, that's awesome. But that's not something that we couldn't already do. What's special is this Write to FileMaker button. So by clicking on this button, what happens is that it takes the content of that text field, passes it to a script in FileMaker, and that script fills out that HTML text input field on the right. So I'm going to click that, and look at that. It filled out the field, and the web viewer down here updated accordingly. And we can go the opposite direction. I've got this little heading here, hello world. And I can click this set heading. And what that did is that it set this heading down here. Maybe you missed it, so I can go I'll click the set heading button again, and you can see it updated this heading accordingly. Now, passing data is awesome, but what's more awesome is that you can affect what people see in JavaScript. So I have this hide paragraphs button. I click it, hides it away. Click the show paragraph buttons. It shows that text. So with that, I mean, the world's your oyster, right? Like, if you really wanted to, you can definitely go and replace every single layout with a web viewer. There's essentially you can have like a rich web application just stored within the web viewer. No layouts other than just that one layout, and yeah, it's really cool what you can do with just those two functions. Now, the second demo that I have, some of you might recognize this. This is the contacts sample application you can find in FileMaker. Now, the default address entry for a contact, very simple. You can type in an address, but there's no sort of auto-completion like you would find in a lot of other text entry fields in the web. So what I've done here is I've gone and I've hooked up a library I found on GitHub, which allows me to do text auto-completion for addresses. So if I wanted to, I can click on this enter addresses field. It brings up a popover. I've sort of themed this so that it looks a little bit like the FileMaker solution, but it is actually a web viewer, and I can start typing in something. So what I wanted was 300 Alamo Plaza, San Antonio, Texas, and with this I don't have to type in the whole thing. And I can just click out of it, and look at that. It filled out the FileMaker field. And if I wanted to edit it, I can click and change this. And there you go. So what I essentially did there was pass data back and forth by clicking into this field. I pass data from FileMaker to the web viewer, and it sets the field that's within this web viewer. So this address comes up. And once I am done, if I click out of it, the JavaScript sends data back to FileMaker. It gives the keys, the primary keys for that record, and then sets the field. So it's all very seamless, it's all very integrated, and there's no refreshing of web viewers, there's no dialog box that comes up and asks you if you want to run a FMP URL. So that's all I have. Thank you.
So that was exciting. That's exciting stuff. I can already see some opportunities. I want to share some of this with some of my clients. So let me go back to what we had. I can go back to my slide deck. So we do have a few additional things to share with you about the new FileMaker. They've changed some of their nomenclature. So FileMaker 19 is incorporating Claris brandings. It's just the Claris ID will replace the FileMaker ID, and the Claris Customer Console is replacing the FileMaker Customer Console. FileMaker Pro Advanced is now just being called FileMaker Pro. I'm sure in the future it'll just be FileMaker and then FM and then just sorry, Steve was drinking coffee when I said that. No, these are just name changes. They're not going to have any bearing on functionality. For example, all of FileMaker Pro advanced tools like script debugger and custom menus will still be available in FileMaker Pro. Again, we're just renaming the desktop product. Although, if you use calculations with the get application version function that rely on the application name, you may need to update those. Licensing and pricing are staying the same as they were in FileMaker 18. And the operating systems, this is a quick list of the operating systems. I want to point out that they're no longer supporting 32-bit on Windows. So if you're using 32-bit plugins, you're going to want to update those. So those of you who are studying for the developer certification, you're going to want to pause on this slide when you come back to watch the video. There are a few things deprecated. We finally removed runtimes from FileMaker Pro. And from a practical standpoint, Claris didn't make any improvements to the runtime technology since it made the deprecated list years ago. And that's led to some rising issues on newer operating systems, including both Mac and Windows. So finally, as they've warned us for years, FileMaker runtimes are no longer a thing. Peer-to-peer network sharing is now on the deprecated list. You'll still be able to find peer-to-peer network sharing in FileMaker 19. This feature may potentially be removed in a future version, but right now it's seen as a need for FileMaker Go deployments for testing, so it's still available now. This new support has been communicated. There's a new support plan that's been communicated to the community for months. It's now gone live. Essentially, as Claris is moving to more frequent product release cycles, we'll be committed to supporting the FileMaker platform for 2 years from the date of the initial release. That fixed 2-year window of support will hopefully help customers better establish themselves on the latest and greatest Claris FileMaker platform for the best experience, while also ensuring that Claris resources are properly allocated. So that's our presentation. How are we doing for questions? Eric and Anthony are going to come back up and join me here. And do we have any questions on the live chat, Bob? No? Okay, so I don't know if anybody's watching live, but you missed your chance if you're watching the recording. I'm really excited about this. Anthony, what do you think is the most exciting feature of FileMaker 19?
Personally, I like the AI stuff. Definitely, for a long time, I've been following AI and machine learning algorithms. So to see it so easily accessible to the general population and to FileMaker developers and essentially everyone, that's extremely exciting to me.
And what do you think the best use of that is going to be? Or what ideas have you had about how you'd like to see that used?
Well, I'm boring. So I've always used it for just like text recognition and data analysis and the charts and graphs of things. So.
Okay, cool. How about you, Eric? What do you think is most exciting about FileMaker 19?
Well, I mean, I have to say the core ML because that's what I demoed, right?
No, you don't have to say that. He didn't demo.
I'm actually excited about the JavaScript integrations. So I think there's the wealth of available JavaScript libraries out there, and like Anthony said, that incorporating JavaScript in FileMaker previously had been, I can't remember how you described it, but it was cumbersome and not fun. And so now to have a better way to incorporate that really just adds so much more flexibility into what you're able to do as a developer and significantly reduces the number of hoops that you have to jump through. And yeah, so I'm excited about that.
I know this is very consistent with a number of changes we've seen over the years in the FileMaker, where in older versions we had to do amazing things to make things work well, and a later version would just come along and replace that trick you pulled with a checkbox, and I see that tradition continuing. We have some questions from our in-house audience. We have Steve Sikora, the president of our.
Hold on just a minute here. We do have some questions that are coming from our chat.
Great, but we've got Steve right now. So.
All right, I'm going to ask first.
Go ahead.
So this is actually a question for Anthony, so I'm going to hand the mic right back to you. But one of the things that really caught my eye about the JavaScript integration with the web viewer is that lack of need to reset the web viewer to get it to do something, right? Mm-hmm. And for a long time, we've built a variety of applications and extensions to applications with web viewers where we're basically kind of forcing a new URL, a new path into that web viewer, or we're updating the code and then just hitting reset. But it's, it works, but it requires a lot of kind of external thinking ahead of time, and it's a bit clumsy. I was wondering if you could just explain in a little bit more technical detail what's happening when we run JavaScript against a web viewer. Are we setting some kind of a variable object inside of that web viewer that then the JavaScript that's already there is seeing, or go into a little technical detail about what's actually happening when we, from FileMaker, do something to cause that web viewer to act on what we just asked for?
Right. So whenever you have a page loaded up on to the web viewer, there's a little checkmark box that you can check, and it allows the web viewer to, or it allows FileMaker to run JavaScript functions, and that's because it's injecting its own set of JavaScript into the web viewer that allows you to run JavaScript functions. It exposes all the JavaScript functions. So let's say you have a JavaScript function that's called hello world. Within your perform JavaScript script step, I think that's what it was called. Sorry if that's wrong, but yeah. When you do the perform JavaScript script step, you define the exact function that you want to call. So for one of the parameters, you'd call hello world. The next parameter is whatever data you want to pass to that function. So that function could take an argument. So within your hello world perform script step, your second parameter is whatever you want to pass into that argument. So what I did for the contact addressed autofill thing, I had a specific function called setAddress. It took one argument, which is the address. And whenever I click into the field in FileMaker, it brought up the web viewer, and then it ran the setAddress JavaScript function and passed in the contents of that field. And within the setAddress function, I had JavaScript that sets the text of the input box that I used. But not only that, I also had a global variable that contained the primary key of the address record along with the primary key of the contact record. So that way, when I'm done with getting the, or whenever the user's done with setting the address or typing in their address, when they click out, it runs a JavaScript function in which runs a FileMaker script and passes both the primary key, both primary keys and the address, does a find based off of that. If there's no record for address, then it creates a new address record and fills out that record with the relevant information.
Awesome. All right, now
Totally makes sense.
we're going to get into actual questions. Whoops. This is where Fred remembers to turn up his mic. We have actual questions from our viewing congregation. Taylor Sharp asks, Anthony, and I think he dropped the word how do you work around about JavaScript triggering multiple times while already running, thereby injecting one script inside another one? DigFM talked about promise functions.
I don't know what he is referring to. Sorry. Thanks for the question, Taylor.
Okay, well, Taylor asked the question. That's okay. If you
yeah.
don't know what it is, they can add more.
Yeah. So
Because it's live.
I don't have any JavaScript that actually runs when the page is loaded. I have sets of functions that are defined, but nothing that actually runs. Because I don't want the web viewer to accidentally reload. That sometimes happens if a variable's been changed, and so the only time that JavaScripts run for the stuff I've personally written is when a FileMaker script goes and calls the JavaScript function. So that's sort of how I prevent JavaScript from running on load or running multiple times, is because if the page isn't loaded, or if the page is loaded and reloads, I mean, that's fine because nothing's running on load anyways.
The only other question that well, there's a couple other things here. Dennis Burnham is being ornery and wants to know about FileMaker Server.
Hi, Dennis. How you doing? FileMaker Server. Robert, do you have something to add about that?
One of the things, obviously,
Can we get him the microphone?
the WebDirect card support.
Wait 1 second.
I believe that the WebDirect card support requires FileMaker Server 19.
Absolutely.
So that's
WebDirect
one.
is coming from FileMaker Server.
That's right. And the other major thing that we're interested in here is FileMaker Server for Linux.
Server for Linux, yes. We have another question in the room. We've got our
think Daisy has
senior
some
developer,
comments.
Daisy Graves.
This is for you also, Anthony. So on the example that you gave us with the entering an address, if you had another web viewer on the same layout of, say, the map, whenever you type in the address where you can have the other web viewer reload, say you type the address in the first one, Alamo, and then it can show where that, the pinpoint on the map. If you typed in a different address right after that, it switched it to the new map.
Right, so are you asking if?
Can it execute the refreshing of the other?
Yeah, definitely. Because you're calling a FileMaker script from JavaScript, you can essentially define within the JavaScript, within the FileMaker script to refresh the other web viewer if you wanted to.
So you just set the object name, is that how it knows which one?
Yes. So within the perform JavaScript function, you define which object
Yep.
that you want to actually run that JavaScript in. So if you wanted to do something like, update the map real time, like Daisy said, you can, in one web viewer, have the address entry. When they're done, they can submit that address. It runs the FileMaker script. Man, I'm getting like script and function just going between the two terms. Hard to keep it straight. FileMaker script, and the FileMaker script then updates the map with whatever pin or whatever within the other web viewer. Alternatively, you can just have it in one web viewer.
So you could have one web viewer that is literally just buttons and another web viewer that is other things. And you could, using this, you
Yeah.
could have the buttons in one web viewer, modified content in another web viewer.
Why stop there? Honestly? You have the button that changes something in the web viewer, and then that sets a FileMaker field that shows up in another
Right.
web viewer, right?
Right.
So where it's sort of handy is that you can do calculations doing something like that. Let's say you have a couple of fields and maybe the calculation you want to do, mathematical calculation you want to do is a little bit complex. It takes a little bit of time in FileMaker, or you're performing lots of calculations. JavaScript's a little bit faster for that. So.
Sounds like this is an innovation tool that's going to be a very fertile field to plow. We're going to get a lot out of this.
Yeah, you definitely can. So, you set up your calculation within JavaScript. You run that JavaScript, and then you can have the results returned back into a FileMaker field. Great.
And I've actually had to do that before for an integration I was building. The API required an HMAC SHA-1 signature. So first I had to look up what that meant. But it's a particular type of cryptographic signature and algorithm that runs on it. And I was tempted to want to do those mathematical calculations with custom functions, but I didn't quite have the time to do that. So I found a JavaScript library that did those for me. And so I passed in, and this was in FileMaker 16, passed in what I needed into a web viewer. And the sole purpose of this web viewer was to do this calculation. There was nothing that it displayed. It just did math for me, and then used an FMP URL to send back the result. But you're waiting for that FMP URL to happen, and which can take more time. So being able to do essentially that same thing this way, and I would also imagine that for instance, that cryptographic calculation is going to perform much faster in JavaScript than it would if you did that same kind of calculation with custom functions in FileMaker. So I would assume.
We had another question from Taylor along the lines of JavaScript. He was asking about calendars, and he wanted to know of a free calendar using new JavaScript functions, kind of like ISO's full calendar.
There's an add-on.
I don't yet, but
Already an
I'm
add-on.
sure we're going to be seeing lots and lots of new JavaScript add-ons coming out on the market, and I'm sure calendars will be coming quickly. I would definitely keep my eye on the Claris marketplace. You say there's already one, Robert?
Already one.
Is it from ISO? Or seed code?
No, it's
no.
from Geist.
Geist, okay, from Todd Geist, okay.
And I would also be surprised if there's not already a third-party calendar on GitHub somewhere that you could just use and then modify as needed.
Definitely, like full calendar, as mentioned, and within
Right.
the presentation D3, they've been, both of those calendars have been around for quite a while, and they're extensible, and you can definitely integrate it with FileMaker.
All right, now the shift thing.
I do want to thank everybody who's signed on to watch us live, particularly including my kids. I promised them a shout out. Hi, Jamie, Michael, and John. When I told them I was going to be doing a live stream on YouTube, they said they'd watch. So.
Okay, continuing, there are questions coming in from a Rob Trammell. Rob Trammell asks, I'm wondering if I can pass a parameter to a JavaScript function, but instead of it being just a string, pass in a typed function like, quote, function, hello world, parentheses, bracket, / do thing, print, other stuff, unquote. Sorry, I couldn't get all that out.
Yeah, so I might be wrong. I definitely haven't looked into this like super in-depth because things. But I think you can only pass one parameter to JavaScript. So what I actually did was something along those lines. I passed a block of JSON over from FileMaker. I generated the JSON with FileMaker JSON functions. And passed that as a string to a JavaScript function, and then parsed that JavaScript object within the JavaScript function to set the things I need to set.
Very good. Just making sure I'm still on. It looks very much like Rob actually just figured out his answer. So thank you for your input.
I love the easy ones. All right. Any others on the live stream?
That is it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We're at the 55-minute mark, and it's been a real pleasure coming to you from our offices here in Dallas. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if we can help you with any of your FileMaker or any other technological projects. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you all so much, and please join us next time on Harmonic Software Production Studios' Public Brain Trust, which may or may not be socially distanced.